I wanna be the best in the game, invest in my name. Check no restraints, I'm obsessed with the pain. I ingest, I retain, assess and I change. Possessed by the thought I'll be free one day from society's restraints. Money, clout and fame, mud, disease, a plague. We all love to hate, have to play the game, have to make a name. All our insecurities are on display. This is war with the enemy. Think that it was meant to be. Living in a time where disease is on every screen.
What's up, everybody? It's a bonus episode of Tactical Awareness. It's Season 1 ITS 14, and Owen and Dan, my fellow co-hosts, have just returned from Colder Than Carbonite, an Infinity satellite event in Calgary, Alberta, which is Canada's current satellite event, and completed with 41 players. And they have been basically preparing and practicing for this since November when they got back to Alberta. You heard us talking in the last episode too about Owen fine-tuning his list. So let's jump in and do a recap and see how the event went and how they did. Bonus content. It's the Colder Than Carbonite episode of Tactical Awareness. This little bonus episode is going to go up right after we record it because why not? Owen and Dan were just at a satellite event. Last episode you heard us doing some list prep for both of them, but mostly for Owen. Talking about his Hassan Baram list, and the lads spent, like 2 days playing 5 games, and we figured we'd do a little recap, starting with like an overall. I think we should probably start with Dan, actually. What was it like playing? You played other games for 2 days. What was it like playing Infinity for 2 straight days?
It was fine. Like, it wasn't crazy. I think other people weren't as like prepared, or I feel like I have a more of a resilience towards like crazy amounts of gaming, and so it was
seasoned, if you will, in the fires
we'll get into it.
Blood Bowl tournaments.
Happened the first game of day 2 where there was just like slight miscommunication, and the guy was just half asleep and clearly had a bad night, and the game went completely off on the wrong foot, and we resolved it by the end. But it was the closest thing to a negative experience in Infinity that I've had so far.
Wow, big words. What about you, Fro? You've played Infinity. You played 5 games of Infinity before in a weekend, haven't you? You played in the ITS at Adepticon.
Joke's on you! I never play Infinity for 2 days in a row.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I mean,
I've now had to do that, and it's fine. I don't know. It's a miniature game. Like, I mean, the way I play is I'm very like, I don't care what my opponent does. So for me, it's very like, I'm just going through the motions game after game after game. And then what stands at the other side changes. You just play the same thing and do the same thing. So for me, it's like copy paste, copy paste. There's no additional like effort being put in. Especially because I walked all the tables really.
It's physically tiring.
The fact that all the tables are short. That's the hardest. True. That's the struggle I live with.
I was gonna say the luxuriousness of the studio tables that were 4.5 feet off the ground, where we could actually like not break our backs playing games. So you get spoiled by it for sure.
Yeah, the fact that they're like creeping around my knees. That's the
you're peering into them.
That's the most
fucking
annoying
lurch.
There were extra chairs in the side room, and every time I like played the game, I was like, why didn't anyone bring out chairs to this table? I'll grab 3 chairs, one for like a table to put my stuff on, and then another one to sit on.
Actually, Jordan said that about our last event. He was like, you could walk all around the tables and you had like dice rollers and there was stuff to put stuff on the sides. Like, I think that's so important. I get that you're trying to cram in 20 tables. It was 41 people at Colder Than Carbonite. There
was a lot of space. It certainly wasn't cramped. It was simply I think it was a case of the like, you know, when you go somewhere and you're not sure if like, hey, can I pull a chair over here? Like that feeling. That was the feeling. Not that like, oh, this wasn't available or there wasn't the space to do it. It was purely, it hadn't been set up in advance, but was available. And it was just a matter of like,
people just needed the confidence, like go grab it. I gotcha. Yeah,
that was more of what it was.
I think I set up like 9 chairs.
So what was the venue like? It was it looked like it was like a community center, some big hall.
Yeah, it was like a like right in the middle of a residential zone in a park, and it was like I would describe it as a Legion Hall. Like it might have even been that, and I just didn't realize, but that was definitely the vibe.
Right.
It had a spot where there could have been a bar, but there was nobody working it.
It was with deep regret.
And it was
There was
awful.
no liquor.
I was
Randy?
like, what do you mean I can't just drink? That's most of what I do at these
I'm
events.
back on the liquor. That's I gotta tell you, Randy, I'm back on the liquor. So final draws. Then you guys locked in your lists. I think you took the 2 lists that we came up with in the last episode. Oh, and so you took your Baram list 1, and a variation of that list 2 that you and I kind of like noodled on that episode. What was the
My
change you
favorite
made?
part.
You made a change the next day for that one.
The biggest change was the fact that, I mean, the list was called Ash's Shakoosh list, and it had neither a
No
Shakoosh.
Shakoosh. Well, because we dropped the
Yeah.
Shakoosh for Ashley Weirs. That was the thing.
No, we dropped it for the double Fidesz was the big thing.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we took him over for the Fidesz.
Which was
and then
very
Dejarin
relevant.
came out, and then Dejarin came out because there was no Shakoosh all of a sudden too.
Yes, and so that became Yazbir, who also won me a game. So
Good decisions all around. Having
Yeah.
a Hall Echo guy to go clear mines is never a bad idea.
that never came up.
Really? What
Not
you
once.
For?
Killing Asuras, and by killing Asuras, I mean staying alive when Asuras are killing him, and then pushing buttons and winning that way.
Nice, sweet.
And also
So
pretending to be Saladin.
Oh, there was a joke on the Discord today that somebody had 2 Saladins, and they've never actually been Saladin in any of his army lists. There's just always somebody in Hollow Mask. So like Saladin gets to be anything except for Saladin when he's in the army. And I was like, that's so sad.
I wasn't even able to bring Saladin. I just brought a Saladin with 2 Hollow Echoes, and then he thought it was an AR, and it was neither of those things. That game is a wild ride. I'll get to it when we talk about the games.
Sweet. All right. So what about you? What'd you end up taking for your 2 lists, Dan? And we'll post these in the description.
Yeah. I had a list with a Zeta and an Alpha, and it was just kind of like you got the TR bot on one side, you got the Zeta on the other side. Hopefully you go first. If you go second, you just hunker down hard and then stick a U bot with the Monstrucker near the TR bot that's definitely going to go down. And if you think there's more things, you stick up like the CSU and the other whatever other cheap crap is there, and you're just like, spend time fighting these flash pulse bots because my Zeta is going to have fun next turn. And then the other one is a list I'm more proud of, which performed very, very well. And that one had 2 Lynxes and a Raptor and Cho pretending to be a blue coat, and Raven Eye and 2 Gangbusters and 2 motorized bounty hunters. And it was just kind of like just a whole bunch of crappish stuff, of weird stuff, and a bunch of hidden deployment. So at the start of the game, people are like, what kind of O12 is this? I don't understand. Who's your lieutenant? Okay, I rolled whip 14 at the front. Okay. What's the whip of the blue coat? 13. What's the whip of the Raven Eye? 13. What? Huh. No one on the board is whip 14.
Nice.
But I'm also hiding 3 models. So they're like, wait, what does O12 have again?
That's hilarious.
So that was a lot of fun. And that list performed very, very well in all my games. So I was very happy with that because it was a completely unique list that didn't really have any influence from anything else.
How many times did you use the Zeta?
Just once.
Wow.
I should have used it twice.
Yeah, you have some regrets on not Zetaing?
In the last, so this we'll get to why I didn't, and that
Gotcha.
I was very happy with my performance. The games that I tied or lost, I can go back to 1, maybe 2 decisions that I made where it would have either won me the game or given me a much, much higher chance of winning. Despite any kind of bad dice or whatever, it was just if I made better decisions, then I feel like I could have won, which is
just like your order really expenditure, cool. Like how you spend your orders.
I've actually had that in a tournament before when I've been playing War Machine or whatever, where it's kind of like I can't like track it down to like decisions that I've made that are like, okay, I made that bad decision, because it's just like other games are more random or other games are more, I don't know. It's kind of like there's only kind of like the one decision where in Infinity, it feels like there's just so many decisions to make. And
That's great. It gives you some agency, though. You feel like you have agency when it's over, right? Like you had the choice and you made a choice that if you'd done it differently, then the result might have been differently, right?
Oh, definitely.
That's awesome. Well, we've got 2 days and 5 games to get through. So what I figure we'll do is we'll do a recap of each mission. But before we move on, we should probably just spoil the ending because it'll give context to all of these discussions, and say that overall we did have a podium member. Owen came up second on the podium, second overall with his assassins. And Dan came 14th. So to 41, you were above the top half, which is a great result for your first like ever Infinity tournament.
I tanked my last game. Otherwise, I probably would have easily been top 10, maybe even top 5.
Oh, it's fantastic.
We'll get to that.
We'll get to that. All right. So day one, round one, you roll in. What's the prize table look like? What's the swag? What you guys get handed?
I got a nice little 3D printed turret, as well as a like a personalized measuring gauge, along with a bunch of little batches and things like that, which were nice. Really nice, like the fact that missions require turrets, but there's not an effective way to just get turrets was nice, because like I didn't have one really. Like I was gonna have to proxy something for one, and then they're just like, here's a turret. I'm like, oh, perfect.
That's so nice.
Didn't really need it. I don't think it ever actually performed an action over the course of the entire event, but it was there.
And now you got it. Especially, I mean, considering that there's so many ITS extras now, like the turret, the defensive turret, the sec deck. Like you can proxy models for the set deck and the Corsair. You know, there's so many drop infantry and there's so many like HVT models you could use as a set deck if you wanted to. But the turret's pretty specific, so having the turret model is nice.
Yeah, and then measuring gauges are always nice, and having one that has your little ITS handle on it, along with all the unit sizes.
Oh, it had your ITS handle printed on? Did unique ones?
Yeah.
That's cool. I didn't realize that. That's awesome.
No, it's that gauge was probably like the highlight of like, ooh, swag.
And no one can ever steal it off you because it's got your ITS like pin number on it and your name.
Exactly. True.
That's awesome. That's so cool. I think Arsenal made those, and they make, of course, incredibly high quality like tokens. All your favorite magnetic tokens, I think, were by them too, weren't they? On the old magnetic stack you used to have.
Yeah, I've been looking at buying another stack of that.
So yeah, me too.
They're expensive if you're not at a Arsenal table in Chicago.
Because like,
you buy them online, they're $1 a piece. You buy them in Chicago, they're $0.25 a piece.
Yeah,
and like that's a big difference.
That's a 400% markup. But yeah, no, they're super nice. And they're super handy because you can like count your order stacks and stuff too. And you can design your own like token kit with those guys. I love those magnetic ones. They also do a really nice pre-colored terrain set now too. There's only a few pieces so far, but I've been eyeballing it. It looks pretty cool.
Yeah, no, the tokens are really good. It's got all the sizes height wise, not so much the width, but then it's got a easily engageable 1 inch, 2 inch, 4 inch, 6 inch, and 8 inch. So really everything you'd ever need. Like
all the measurements, you get your zone of control, and then all the movement stats like on top of that. That's sweet. All right, so what was round one?
Supplies.
Well, let's start with you, Dan. Round one, what was your opponent? So you ran in with your 2 lists, Zeta list and your Wild Bunch list. And you were dropping into what was the faction you're dropping into?
The combined army. And then he's like, I'm rolling on a whip 16. I was like, whoa, that's a big scary lieutenant. I have no idea who it is. And we played on a board it's a weird board. One of the local guys in Calgary made it. Basically, it's just jungle. It's just jungle everywhere and some rocks.
How did you treat the jungle?
Everything is zero. Everything jungle is 0 viz terrain.
Was it saturation too?
No.
Really? Oh, I thought the rulebook had that as saturation.
Slight comment on this table. I also play on this table over the event, and the result of my game results in the table being changed.
Oh, for real?
So yeah, that happens because I think I play on it right after Dan does. Like it's 1-2, and then it's like I think this needs to be adjusted. But tell your story.
It's just covered in free smoke, basically.
Well, here's the thing: is he sets up his HMG lieutenant with MSV3 I don't know who he is.
Carotid. Yeah, it's a
There
carotid.
he is.
Yeah.
It's Carotid. And so he's there.
It was probably a carotid and not thematic list. They probably had the 2 big 40 mil like kill pieces.
Was he on a 40 mil? I thought it was only on a 25.
I think Carotid's on a 40 mil. I might be wrong, but I know that the
he was hiding behind a hill.
There's Big Dreadlocks guy too, who's like a hacker who's got a plasma rifle that is usually also on that list.
That's on a 40 mil that hides.
Yeah, hidden deployment.
Yeah,
or
he
Tio
was there too.
Yeah, sounds like the classic currently hot net list for.
And then get a missile bot and bit and kiss and all that jazz. But I got to go first, and so me going first was let's activate this duo of motorized bounty hunters. We'll run up, we'll dodge. They both survive. And then they run, and then one runs up and goes double chain call and does a wound on the Carotid.
Oh.
But then it survives because it got like +4 armor on his booty.
Oh, dear.
Like, sweet.
So now he's a motorized Montesa, basically.
So then I walk up again and double chain colt another side. I kill Bit and Kiss, and then I do another wound to him, but he's got like no wounding cap. But then one of his guys dodges into me. I'm like, nuts. Don't worry, there's another one. And so my other, they're not hackable. So he runs up, submachine guns, kills all the repeaters that he was tossing down as well. And it was just kind of like, blah. And then
so 18 points where the motorized bounty hunters basically alpha struck as if they were bears.
Oh, it was amazing. some bad rolls in his armor for my part, but it was just kind of like, nobody expects the duo of bounty hunters to just come up and chain colt everything. I did that in a couple of games. And it was glorious. As long as they don't go up into something with too much armor. But anyways, so they do that. They both live at the end of that. I'm like, what? Okay, sure. But they're out of orders because they're in a small group. And so then I move on to the other group. And I basically just hunker down around the table where he can't do much. And he's lost his MSV3. And so, cool. So he goes. He tries to advance. He's got to fight. He kills my motorized bounty hunters. No biggie. He has like one more guy that could hit. Oh yeah, and so that was the rest of my turn. Was I grabbed 2 supply crates and ran away with them. And then he activated his guy. He has got a forward observer bot. He walks up to go grab, but his second movement walks into my hidden deployment Razor, and so he pops out and isolates him.
Oh no!
It's isolated, so his hacker can't do anything either. The repeater's turned off. And so that's done. Then he brings out his camo guy. He walks into a mad trap, which, if we play this right, reveals the camo because it runs up and hugs him. Because mines go off on camo markers, right?
On camo markers? I think I can't remember.
Anyways, that's the way we played it.
Keep going. I think mines go off on camo. They don't go off on impersonation.
It was camo though. He came out of hidden deployment. It was in camo. And he walked into the mad trap. Mad trap ran. He was kind of like tilted, I think. It was just kind of like everything died too quickly. And it was like, oh, what is my game plan now? And it's like, just gonna advance up and attack things. And then, so he was a killer hacker, but he hadn't gone impersonation. He was just still in camo. And so then the mad trap hit him. He had to dodge, and he was revealed, and he was trying to pop out. And then my Link sniper popped out, and they were shooting him at both at like, slap fighting at -6 in cover. And then a whole lot of nothing happened. And it was like, okay, what do we do now? And then I got to do my turn, and I kind of grabbed the other box, set up a good defense, went over, killed some more dudes, and that was basically that.
Mm-hmm. It looks like here you got 10-1, and you had 300 VPs remaining to his 94.
Yeah, the only thing I lost was my sec deck.
Oh yeah.
So it was partly dice, but it was partly I got to go first. I got a really good alpha strike. People underestimated the ability of the O12 alpha strike. And that was
and also just how like disposable that group 2 double chain cold duo of bounty hunters is. They're great. 18 points, they can cause a lot of trouble. I think get there all the time too.
Yeah, you know what? He actually ended up not killing my bounty hunters. That's why I had all those points. He just activated other things on the other side of the board. It was like it's too much, too time. Like it wasn't going to accomplish enough. He didn't have any melee specialists near him, so it was just kind of. He was
just let them stand there staring at each other.
They just you just sit there in combat.
Nice. All right, so then Owen, your round one. This is also supplies against my favorite ITS handle of the whole event, snakes and dildos.
Yeah, so roll up. It's a classic kind of city map. Lots of elevation, lots of ups and downs, lots of little back alleyways. So pretty lots of opportunity. He is also playing assassins. As you do, of course. And I think I play all of the assassin players at the event. Over the course of my time there.
Because of course you do.
Because of course.
He had to assert dominance.
That's what it was, right? Had to show that mine was the real assassin list. But no, we roll off. I win the roll. I decide that I want to go first because I decide to play my double Sunduck butt list because this was the scenario or one of the scenarios that it was built for. Basically, if you don't have an exclusion zone, this thing is challenging to deal with.
Yeah, come get the supplies through 2 Sunduck butts and 5 Delamis.
Yeah, and so I go first. In the amusing, like, he puts down his smiley, I put down my smiley. We both have Fidays. He has a 5 link of Muyibs and Govads, which means that he has a 5 pure link that has access to MSV as well as number 2 and such, which is a pretty good solution to things like McMurrow, but some like awkward deployment meant that McMurrow was able to. I spent my first turn just capping boxes and killing his Fiday. He made fun of my Nazmats, not realizing that I had 2 Sunduck butts. And so the one Nazmat like walks over and looks at the Fiday smiley, and I'm like, you want to react? And he just chooses not to. I discover him. Second one, he reveals himself so that he can kill my 3-point Nazmat. And then a Delami just steps out and shotguns the Fiday into the ground.
25 points. You killed 3 points. You died at 8 points.
Yeah, he killed the Delami too. So he got 11 points off. But
sweet.
My lieutenant didn't die, which was the big thing. Because one of the things about those assassin games is everyone knows who everyone's lieutenant is.
Yeah.
And it just becomes, can you execute your Fiday play? I didn't do like a super rush on the first turn like I normally would because I always don't get the boxes on supplies. And so I spent a bunch of orders killing his Fiday, getting the box, and then just securing. And end of turn, putting McMurrow in a position where he's chain rifling everyone in that link team.
You have so much stuff too that can walk over and just get into base to base with someone holding a box to contest it, which is a huge deal. Like just being able to stand in contact cancels that guy holding the box.
100%. His turn, he walks out, like he's got a collection of Ghazis as well, so he decides to do those first. The first Sunduck butt reveals and just starts annihilating Ghazis. So he switches to the other side of the board. And there was a moment here where I felt kind of bad, and I feel like it tilted to some degree, where there's a series of camo markers that I have on the rooftop of the right side of the board, and he has his own McMurrow, because why not? And his Ghazi was out of line of fire and tossed a smoke. And I had said, hey, I can see McMurrow with this camo marker. Did you mean to have that smoke a little back so I couldn't see? And he said, I put it where it was. And I went, okay. And then McMurrow got shot by the viral rifles and had to make 10 BTS saves. And just immediately died.
just melted.
Yeah. 2 crits, 4 hits, 10 rolls.
He counted on 1. He didn't count on 2.
And that was the moment the second Sunduck buck came out, he went, oh, you're not getting sportsmanship. Because the list has 2 Fidays, 2 Sunduck butts, and McMurrow in it.
Well, I mean, we all knew what we were here for. This is a satellite tournament. Like
this is how it's gonna be.
Yeah.
And I'm not upset about it. I know what I've chosen. Yeah, he does have a good moment though, where he steps out with his Shujay, and I completely misjudge it, and my Sunduck butt is out of range on his chain rifles, and he just downs the Sunduck butt with the first shot. Which begins the trend of the rest of that match of neither Sunduck butt being competent in the least. Like they lose every face-to-face roll and fail every armor save. But I keep fixing. And so he keeps having to kill the same Sunduck butt repeatedly. And And yeah, basically I'm in his face incredibly hard. I think his third turn, it was like 5 points not in retreat. Like he was not in retreat yet by 5 points. And then my final turn was just clearing up what was left. I made a slight mistake where I had an order left and I thought I was within zone of control of his HVT for secure HVT. Ended my turn, end of the game. I'm like, oh crap, I could have just walked back. But that was just how
7.
it was.
Yeah, 16 out of 7. But you had 174 left. He had 44 points left. I guess he just ground himself into paste.
Well, the McMurrow killed a whole bunch. Then the first Fide walked out. Then the second Fide walked out. Like, I'm murdering all of the things that can't defend themselves very well, and the things that can, he's running into a nightmare of revealing Daylami Panzerfaust and viral rifles. Yeah.
So it worked as intended. Basically, it was a giant like meat grinder that you had to throw yourself into, and especially in a mission like Supplies where you either let your opponent grind themselves to paste and extract the boxes for you and then just go take them back afterwards, or you just wait until he's got nothing left and just go step over and grab them at the end with your, whip 1,000 because you're all doctor bonuses because you got doctors everywhere.
And I did both. I went out and took it at the beginning and then pulled back. And then as he tried to push forward, he got ground up as his, he had a camo marker, like a Farzan or something that was up front trying to sneak an objective. And then it was just like, Sundukput, Daylami. Oh, that's the end of the Farzan. Mimetism doesn't save you when 5, 6, 7 dice are being thrown at you.
Yeah, and you have to make multiple engagements.
Yep. And so that was that game.
There you go. So 6-2. And then we're on to, what was the next mission, Dan?
Countermeasures.
Okay, so you both got majors at this point. You luckily didn't play each other. And you're going into countermeasures. Countermeasures feels like it would be miserable in a 3-day event. So at least it was second.
Mine was I'll do mine first this time.
Go ahead.
Sure. Because now I move over to the forest table that Dan was playing on.
Yeah, so let's get good follow-up. And what were you dropping into?
I was dropping into Assassins again.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. He won the roll and decided to go first because that's what you should do when you play Assassins. You should go first because you have Fides, you can do tons of damage. And on this particular map, he had Yara Haddad in his list, which meant he had an MSV2 in a 5-man link in a board that you could see basically everything. And theoretically, that would be really good. But I put a Fide directly beside Yara Haddad right off the bat, as well as a second Fide near his other link. And then one of the great things about this list is that there are 2 Daylamis in it. And you deploy them within 8 inches of each other. And you say, I have 2 standing camo markers right here that have no mimetism. And it could be a Sundukput. Let me tell you about Sundukputs and how great they are. Just so you're aware that exists. But it's not a Sundukput. It's 2 Daylamis. But everyone assumed that it was a Sundukput going forward because they played it like it was. But on his first turn, he lost 214 points between the Fides, shotguns, mines, and the 2 Daylamis. It was really bad. He wasn't in a position to be able to dig himself out of the fact that the Fides are right in the middle of his links. Because of him having to deploy first, because he was going first, I was able to perfectly place things so that he couldn't, if he activated that, it was just within range of a template, which would mean it would hit these. If he activated there, it meant this. And then on top of that, the dice didn't forgive him. With a standout being he had deployed behind the one rock on the right side of the board, with his Harris link of Muyibs and a Lasik or something like that. And I was able to deploy just at the end of the line of them behind the rock. And he has a viral mine because he's got Muyibs. But he activates them. I shoot my shotgun down the line, kill 3 of those guys, and don't die to the viral mine with no BTS. That's just how that game went. And it was like that everywhere. He couldn't, he was already off to a rough start, and then it just the dice just brutalized him.
Froze. Yeah, the dice just froze.
So what you're saying is that you mind fucked him and then you dice fucked him.
You don't get to choose that part, but
yeah. And so
and then
going into
the problem is you go into something mind screwed, and then the dice start screwing you, and then it's just an avalanche of like second guessing and bad decisions usually after that for that poor guy.
Yeah, it sounds like when I was like, how did you lose so much first turn? And I had Owen like recount like exactly what happened, and it sounded like he got frustrated. It was just like, well, I'm just gonna do this now, and I'm like, that was the wrong thing to do. And it was just kind of like I've been there. I've been there. I'm like, what do I do about these freaking fidets in my deployment?
We had to talk afterwards about how he probably should have ignored my my markers and used his fide to go hunt my lieutenant. Because like the thing is actually in that list, it's much harder to find the lieutenant because it's one of two Asawiras. And so it's not as obvious, but a fide will solve your problems with Little Harris teams, especially if you don't need to come back. Like if you're just knocking models down. But instead he tried to like disentangle himself as an active player, which for me, all I need you to do is not kill models. Like if the fide can stand there and stall for 4 or 5 orders, that's wonderful. But not only did it stall, it killed a whole bunch of people while it was doing it. And yeah, so hit my first turn, McMurrow sniffed out his fide and then killed it, dragged him back to his own side of the board so I could get one of my classifieds. And then I had to stop attacking him because he would go into retreat. And unfortunately, in that mission, there's no good way to score points if the game ends early. So he spent his turn running into melee with my fide and making me have to melee attack him. I know I could have chosen to not attack, but I mean, how, like, what do you do? Right? I'm gonna be like, no, I'm not gonna play. I'm not gonna allow you to kill yourself. You have to sit here and suffer.
Yeah.
Like
you played him back in November too at the Calgary Krug, it looks like.
Yeah, so we played here, and yeah, it was basically he had gotten pretty tilted at that point, as you would expect, and then he just killed himself, went into retreat. My last turn, which is turn 2, I do as many objectives as I can, and that's all it was.
And you go 8-0, and it was 265 to 17 when it was all said and done for victory points. So what about for you, Dan? This is highly classified. This is the river of classifieds. Not highly classified. This is countermeasures. Sorry.
Countermeasures. So
highly classified too.
Highly classified too. This is basically the other river card mission.
So I went up against Steel Phalanx. So immediately, okay, he's going to have elite models. So I should bring the Zeta. But also the Zeta list has an engineer, and my other list doesn't have a medic or engineer. So I was like, there's going to be stuff I'm going to miss out on if I don't have anything. So I'll bring that list. And I kind of had the idea to begin with. He gets to go first. I deploy a bunch of guys, kind of sit on rooftops of my deployment zone, and then hide everyone else away. And then he last deploy is Atalanta. And I'm like, what's that model? What does that do? And then I died. Well, anything that was poking up their head just got pew, 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 pew. And I was like, I didn't do the math perfectly. And I was like, oh, I'll just shoot back with my TR bot. Oh, wait, I'm hitting on -1. Oh, no, I should have dodged.
She's brutal. Yeah, a total reaction sniper rifle is brutal.
Yeah.
Multi-sniper rifle, DA.
Marksmanship.
So she's always hitting on 18s.
Yeah.
Always. Unless you get really close to her. So anyways, so I'm like, okay, so I lost at half the amount of models, but he doesn't have a lot of models. He only had one group, and he had a Hector, but Hector didn't move up at all. And so, what was really good for me is Andromeda failed her infiltration roll. And because of the exclusion zone, you're basically, who cares, unless, like, she had to be, so she basically sat in the corner and did nothing all game, which was really nice. I didn't have to deal with that. So first thing I do is my Varangians walk up and throw some smoke on the sides of the tables. He had some other fire teams. I ended up walking that one Varangian up into range of both of them, just hiding in the smoke, so that when I ended my turn, he'd be looking at 2 members of the fire team, and I'm like, I got a chain rifle. So that worked out really well. And then my first mistake was there was actually the terrain was dense enough in the middle that I had a line with the Varangian, could have ran up, slightly order intensive, and run up and chain rifled Atalanta, taking like maybe 4 orders, and then Atalanta would have been like probably taken care of. I mean, who knows? But if she dodges and I can, then if she ducks, then it's okay, whatever. But instead, what I chose to do was just run up with a Zeta, and I'm like, look, I'm hitting you on 14s, you're hitting me on 18s, but I get 5 dice, you get 2 dice. This is gonna end badly for you eventually. My Zeta took 2 wounds, and I finally got Atalanta down, but she didn't die. It was just unconscious. And Pandora was sitting at the bottom of the stairs looking at the corpse. And it was like really hard. And so then the Zeta kind of walked up, and I had an option to walk backwards up a building using my climbing plus to get a line on Pandora, but I got greedy because I could see Hector, and I could almost isolate Hector and just rail into him. He'd be at bad range, I'd be a good range. I get 5 dice, I'm hitting it. You know, he's out of cover because of it was so juicy to kill Hector. And 2 orders later, Hector didn't have a scratch, nothing was happening. And then I ended up getting flash pulsed, and so I couldn't shoot anymore. And so I was like, crap. And so I kind of moved some other guys on the board, but mostly all the orders have been spent. During his turn, his Sectet jumps over with his breaker rifle and murders the Zeta. And then he drew the. Actually, he scored 1 point his first turn. I scored 2 points my first turn. So that was a good thing going. I got my TR back up. Pandora shoots 2 medkits at Atalanta. Only 1 hits, and then on 11, like practically a 50-50 for her to get back up, she gets back up. And then she murders my TR bot again, and just kind of like is in the way, and it's like, ugh. And so then he moves up, scores another 2. So he's just 1 ahead, and then my turn. And then the Varangian on that side does walk up, does chain rifle Atalanta, so Atalanta's down. And then Pandora's way up the board, so it's okay, whatever. I also had a Fort Observer bot climb up on some buildings and do some shots, but nothing really worked. And then it went down, and that lost me my sensor for another potential point. But I scored 2 points. I tried to kill her hacker Pandora like 3 times, and she just, with her 0 pain, just was able to avoid it. She went to no wounding cap, but I couldn't quite get her. And so that was really annoying. And then his turn, everything popped up for him to score 3 points. And so he was 2 ahead of me going to the last round. And if Pandora would have died, he wouldn't have scored anything. So that was just like the. And then I was able to squeak out 2 more points. So we tied 5-5.
Yeah, 5-5. And losing that Zeta took you down to 97 VPs. You were like hovering over retreat actually there at the end too.
Yeah. I didn't have a lot left. It was just a few. The Monstrucker ran up and grabbed my Sectet, I do believe, and then carried. No, he grabbed my TR bot and dragged him over the line to. No, it was a flashball spot. He ran over. He was like, okay, I have 4 orders to do this. It's like ran up with climbing plus, ran down, ran up, grabbed the flash pulse and dragged him out of my deployment zone for a point. And then my other gangbuster killer hacker ran in. I had 1 order. I ran in. Some people shot me from the side, but I did the decharge. No, not decharges, but as a hacker, I did something in his deployment zone with something. I don't know. I got a point. That's all that matters.
Net undermine probably, or like actually it's probably the telemetry, or not telemetry, the one where you have to like hack or spotlight a building or whatever, basically, for observe a building.
Something like that. Anywho, going back looking at the game, if I wouldn't have gone for Hector and just killed Pandora, because I could have walked up the wall and got a line on her, she was hiding behind a little thing. If I just focused on Pandora, I would have only had Pandora shooting back at me or dodging. Like 100% she dies, because I would have had like 15, maybe 20 dice total of orders to shoot her. And then the Zeta would have.
She's pretty hard to kill, man. She'd be -9 to shoot her if she's in cover dodging, right?
Oh,
like
that's true. She does.
Yeah, she's
like
dodge -6. She's a lot harder to put down than you think she is.
He was
actually
templates.
It's templates usually that are the way you get her.
He was actually flash pulsing me back. Or does she have flash pulse? I can't remember.
I don't know.
Or maybe she wasn't. Anyways, I feel like I could have killed her.
Dodging because she puts you at the -6, right?
I guess that's true. So, anyways, if I would have killed her, then Atalanta doesn't get back up, and then I think he got 3 or 4 objectives with her.
Oh, she's fantastic. Yeah.
And so it was like
she does everything.
If I just 100% focused on trying to kill her with the Zeta,
she does have a +1 burst flash pulse. Yeah, actually, yeah. She's the weirdest profile. She's a pitcher, pulsar, flash pulse +1 burst, medkit +1 burst, and then hacking device 0 pain, courage, dodge -6, no wounding cap. Do you it's hard? Blade, she is 12.
It's hard to go back, but basically, I think because it's burst 5, POW 16 AP kind of thing, or shock. It's like I think I kill her. It would be tough, but again, I get like 20 dice against her, so I probably get her unless it's really bad dice. I think, in my opinion, and if I did that, then almost guaranteed I won the game. But it's so hard because in countermeasures you don't know what missions are coming back up, and maybe Hector would have scored them better or whatever. And so it's just tough. And if the Zeta was on the wall, then he wouldn't have been able to come over and crunch my neck for an easy point. It would have to work for him more. And it's just all these kind of like little things where it's like I got greedy and tried to kill Hector, and I probably should have just tried to kill Pandora. Even though they're probably equally hard to kill. And so I don't know. Maybe bad dice.
The golden rule of always bully, right? The Zeta should always be bullying. Always punch down, never punch up. Right? Yeah. Never punch.
I was bullying Hector though.
He was. Yeah, you're never really bullying Hector though. You're bullying when you're against like 1 wound guys. I'm not talking. Hector's a pretty legit fight piece. He's not a. I mean, Pandora's got some defensive tech, right? But like, he's got 2 wounds. You're not dropping him in 1. And he's 2 wounds, no wounding cap too. You got to win 3 times out of that 20 dice.
Yeah, I guess I go back to the first game I ever played against Owen, and he had Hector on a roof, and I like faced up him, and I just murdered him with my Zeta, and I was like, I'll just do it again.
If everything goes perfect, it'll be fine.
But it's not even that perfect. It's like POW 16 AP.
I'm not saying it's not great.
It is great. It was. I should have, and he kept on critting me. That was the problem. It was like he had like 1 because I disrupted his Harris over there. I like killed the engineer in the back or whatever, and so he only had 1 die arrow, and it was like 5 dice versus 1. He was in bad range, I was in good range, so I'm hitting on like 17s, he's hitting on whatever the 13, and it's just like, oh, I'll just roll a 13, and I'm like, what?
So it feels like this is the closest you get to getting frustrated during the course of this event. Like you immediately during this like thing, the text exchange that started up in the group chat was like. You doing exactly what you're doing right now and replaying the game tape like in real time. There was a good 40 minutes of that happening. And
even after the Zeta died, then Hector walked up to the middle of the board, out of cover, just in the middle of freaking nowhere. And my engineer walks up, good old climbing plus. I get that TR bot going again, and the TR bot was able to walk into a walkway, not end there, but walk back, kind of like walk out, walk back, and then get full shots on Hector. And it's like, heavy machine gun shooting at him. I just spent like 3 orders shooting him. He didn't take 1 scratch, didn't take 1 wound the entire game. It was frustrating to say the least. I felt a little bit diced, but then I was making all the right decisions to score. Like I scored the most I possibly could. And it was so close of like 2 opportunities to kill Pandora, and like good opportunities, I feel, of like the dice weren't like heavily favored, but they were favored, and both times they betrayed me, and Pandora scored all the points, was able to tie it. So I felt good about the game, as I felt I played well. It was just like if I just really focused on killing Pandora, if I had recognized how many points she was able to do, then maybe the game goes a lot better for me and I get the win.
Got it. So you're going into round 3 then. You've pulled a draw. Owen's got another major, and it's the end of the first day. And what's the end of first day mission, Owen?
What is that one? Unmasking. It's the other bad one.
Well, it's not bad, but there is unopposed points, right? Because you get unrecoverable points when you start pushing the buttons.
Well, they can flip the buttons if that's what you mean.
No, because when you push the button, you get to make a whip check and see which one's whip. Oh no, I'm thinking of the new one. Carbonite or whatever, cold bite. No, the one where you try and reveal where the HVTs are. I'm thinking of that one
where they come out of the boxes or whatever. No, this
that's
is
right. This is the one where you get 3 chances to find the lieutenant. That's right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
This basically the list that had 2 Sundeck Butts and all the Delamis was only for scenarios that don't have an exclusion zone. And so this scenario and the second one are both the scenarios where they couldn't or wouldn't really play unless I had played Ariadna. I wasn't going to drop the double Sunduck Buds, which meant that they were uphill battles because it's an inferior list in my opinion, but it'll do the job.
And yet you chose it.
I don't think it's an inferior list. I think it's not. It doesn't play the same way. It doesn't play to the same advantages. So if you try and play it the same way, it's not going to get you the same result. But I think you made the right call having a list to not be in exclusion zones. You know what I mean? To have a list that sat back and did a little bit more classic tactical advance.
Yeah, and it's not that it didn't like do what it needed to do. Because yeah, I guess in my game here, I'll just keep explaining it. I'm playing against the OSS. We've got like an Asura, we've got a Link team, we've got some post-humans, we have Andromeda, we have Missilebot, just kind of like an array of different units, and then some guys that come in on the board from the side with Spitfires, which was not surprising per se, but
Garuda attack bots.
Garuda, yeah.
The Garuda thieves from never mind.
Wrong game. But yeah, I think I got to go first on that one as well, and was able to set it up for McMurrow to bulldoze his way in. And I didn't do that much damage on my first turn. The big standouts of my first turn were tossing a pitcher from one of my Bereeds next to the Asura, and McMurrow killing like 4 models, or at least downing them, but he didn't have medics, so effectively dead. And then I mess up pretty badly trying to fight Andromeda. Like I let Agazi get too close so that she's able to engage him, and things just go kind of sideways from there. Like there's a whole interaction that goes on between Andromeda, Agazi, and an Asawira where I make like a series of bad decisions where like I shoot into combat and or get too close to her and or don't dodge instead of shooting when the opportunity arises, because like I know he's got units that are going to come from behind to attack the Asawira, and all of these things come together and I lose a full Harris, Ghazi, and some other things. But I have my 2 no camo standing camo markers, or no mimetism.
I told you they're great. I told you
standing on a rooftop within 8 of each other, looking at the doorway that the Asawira or the Asura could walk out of.
Yeah.
And he spends so long not going through there and then like doing effort to make it so that he can exit that doorway without having a shot.
I'm so happy because we literally said that last episode where I was like, there's some value to having some standing Panzerfausts.
Well, he thought they were the Sunduck Butt.
Right.
Because a Sunduck Butt with a Fuhrbach up there would just annihilate everything on that side of the board.
Absolutely.
And Owen started the game with, do you know what Sunduck Butts do?
I did. Of course I did. I was like, have you played against Hawk Islam? Do you know what a Sunduck Butt is? Do you know what Daylami are? Do you know this? And I brought up all of the things. And he plays against somebody apparently in his like local group that also plays Assassins. And so he was aware of what these things were, but the person he plays doesn't do the same switches as I do. And so like Yazbir was pretending to be Saladin, and he assumed Yazbir was an AR. Now an AR is basically a heavy infantry, like I'm going to shoot you to death and kill you. Yazbir is not that guy, but notably the AR can't be a specialist, but Yazbir is a specialist. And so we ignored him when the Asura went on our little rampage to go try and clean up the one side of the board. And then next thing you know, Yazbir just like, doop-dee-doo, I'm going to kill Andromeda. Now I'm going to go push this button. Yeah, it was
basically left a big opportunity for you there because he didn't think you could push buttons.
It wasn't entirely left because he did realize who it was after that point. And the Asura shot him like 5 times. And I just kept getting lucky where I'd either dodge or make my armor save until finally he knocked me unconscious. And then he's like, okay, I'm going to go. And he goes to kill. It's his final turn. Or rather, he has 1 turn after that, but it's not going to be relevant because he's out of models at this point. Like the double Fides and whatnot have finished off most of his backfield, but he has an Asura with 2 lieutenant options. And that alone is pretty rampagey. And he gets the button. He spotlights the one revealed civilian, and he goes over and he can almost make it to him, but he's like an inch away from the civilian. 3 shots on 20s. The civvy dodges 2 of them and then makes his armor save.
Oof.
So he doesn't kill any of my guys.
Right.
Then on my turn, my doctor shoots a med kit from 16 inches out. Yasbir stands back up, walks over, pushes a button, and kills another one of his civilians. And then my surviving Asawira walks 24 inches across the board and engages the Asura. And now in my turn, there's nothing he can do. Like, an Asura is not the worst at close combat. Like, she's CC like 20, but you're not going to beat DA close combat weapon Asura or Asawira. And so he tried, and it was like slap, 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 dead. And then he tried to rush some guys up on the side to steal one of my objectives, but Agazi teamed up with Yasbir, just shot everybody over there as well. And I think that was another like close game. It was like 6-2 or something like that again.
That one went 6-3 at the end.
Yep.
He was, interestingly enough, he was at 74 victory points at the end of it, which means he was in retreat by 1 point.
I mean, he started his last turn at 7.
Yeah.
I guess actually that's not true. He would have ended that turn because I killed everybody on his final turn.
Right, on his final turn.
Yeah, that's a trend, by the way. Coming out of day 1, of the potential 900 points surviving in my games, there's 134 points alive. I killed like 2.5 full players. It's only relevant that it sticks out in my head because in my 4th game, that guy had as many points survive as all of my previous games combined.
Yeah, it's 135 points of living models at the end of it all. So Dan, you go into your game 3. You've just had a draw. You're a little bit tilted, and who do
I wouldn't say I'm tilted.
Sorry, you're a little bit discouraged or disappointed in your performance because you drew. I'm just taking the tone of your texts. I was
disappointed in him.
Okay. There we go. That's what you want.
The weight of Owen's disappointment was heavy on my shoulders.
Yeah.
I was like, just take the L. Don't tie.
That's right.
Don't that comes back to haunt me.
Double loss. Yeah. Owen would rather lose big than double tie.
I struggled so hard for those last 2 points, and then to tie that up, I was like, come on. I just had to make perfect rolls, and I did.
So who did you pull for Unmasking?
I had to go against Morats. And so it was like, okay, another combined army, and it was another guy he was friends with the first guy. They both were out of Red Deer. So he was a jovial guy. I really enjoyed playing with him because it was the last game of the day. They didn't have like a hard cap, and I think our game went almost 3 hours. Just because we started just enjoying each other's company and like talking, and people were coming around the board and talking, and then the tournament organizers were like, "Just finish your game so we can go to the bar." Like, oh yeah, sorry, okay. But no, it was a really good game. Probably my favorite opponent of the tournament, and basically he got to go first. The board was this weird catwalk mesh thing, where on the ground floor it was kind of really open. There were some big things.
The Comanche walkways from Arsenal. Owen and I have a set actually here in Ontario that we played with quite a bit. And yes, they can lead to some very open sight lines down below.
Yeah, so they had some like big stuff kind of blocking some sight lines, but like kind of once you got in the middle of those things, it was just kind of like everyone can kind of see everybody all the time. I played my more camo list with Cho hiding as the lieutenant, and his first turn, because everything was so open and you had to deploy so far forward, he discovered he had smoke grenades, and he discovered 2 and killed 2 of my HVTs, not the actual HVT. So he was hiding back in the best spot, obviously. But then during my turn, I was then able to do the same thing. And like not a lot had died on either side, just because we were kind of like cagey a little bit. And then he moved in, was able to do some damage, but not a lot. I had a pretty good defensive setup. And then my amazing beast hunter, came out of cam, or no, walked over as he revealed cam out of camo and shot a Panzerfaust. He was like, "Oh, you tricked me. I thought that was a mine for sure." I was like, "Yes." And then he walked around the corner. No, actually, he jumped up and took a pot shot with a Panzerfaust to a guy in the back line, which he didn't see the line of. But I missed. I missed both Panzerfausts. It was very sad. But then he walked up to his last HVT that I discovered, went in the camo because he put some like defensive guys around it. I went in the camo, and then I walked up, tried to discover me. I walked again, he discovered me, and then I walked into close combat. And then he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna shoot. I'm gonna do this." And I'm like, "Heavy flamethrower on all the guys that are in there trying to protect them." And then everyone died, and so did, including the Beast Hunter. But he did his job, and so I was able to get my full points that way. And then it was that was my turn 2. His turn 3, he came in with his big link team, and then he just won every single engagement. He just walked through the center of the board. All my little guys coming out of my links with the plasma carbine and my sniper from the other side, and everything just fell apart. It was just, I couldn't win any engagements. I had to make a fight a little bit for it. I had some more mad traps down, had a couple people in suppression, and it was just like, I made him definitely work for it, but there's just nothing really went my way. I didn't kill any models on the way in. So he had full core link, bonuses. And
yeah, more at core link is no joke. There's some heavy hitters in there.
I discovered that. And then I had one Razor hiding on one of the catwalks because I was like, oh yeah, he's going to have heavy infantry. They're all veterans, so I can't isolate them, but I could try to mobilize them, I guess. But it was just kind of like, that's not great. And so I reveal him just trying to get more defense. And then my turn, I have like 4 orders. I'm almost in retreat. I think I'm above by like 5 points. And then I just try to kill some dudes and try to get the Razor over because it's a tie game at 6-6. If I can hit a console and flip it, I'll win the tiebreaker that way, and I'll win the game. And then I realized my mistake in that if my Razor's up top, being safe from gunfighters, but can hack still, he's not on the bottom, where if I just kept him, I could have revealed him in min-6 camo, walked up to the button and pushed it, and he could have done nothing about it. And hackers are specialists, so you get 2 dice on 16s, and if either one of them goes through, I win the game. And so all I had to do was deploy the Razor on the ground floor and keep him in hidden deployment till turn 3, and I win that game if everything else stays the same. And I was like, I am so silly. But
so this dude never revealed really anything the whole game, and he was like your pocket hero basically that you could have had. That's good and bad. Good because like obviously you recognized this like opportunity that you kind of passed up, and bad because you passed it up, I guess.
Yeah, so he was just up top, and I ended up revealing and just shooting with his combi rifle just to try to stop the advancement of his team. And like he didn't have a lot of models left either at the end of the game, but and then he had what sealed the coffin was because I had my Raptor with 360 visor on suppression, right? And then he's like, he walks over to my side of the board, looks like he has like some, drop troop or something. I'm like, just so you're aware, these guys have 360. He's like, that changes my plans for now. And he walks back around the side of the board, and then he goes in, kills the Raptor, and then they have that special drop troop that can just parachute on from my deployment.
Raziats, the diplomatic division.
And then he just shot my HVT because, he didn't have to go around any corners. And
yeah, so the Raziat's pretty legit in Unmasking because once you pop the who's who, you can just walk on wherever you like and go kill him.
So, I was down to like 1 model. I might have actually lost all my models or something like that by the end. I think Ada Swanson was still alive, hiding on a rooftop. Or
in 32 points left. Yeah, it was 166 to 32. You got retrieved. You still had 6 points. The thing is impressive, right? It was 6-6 at the end of it all. You had tied, even though you were massively in retreat.
It was just that last turn. His turn 3, he like murdered my whole army, and then my turn 3, I murdered the rest of my army, desperately trying to open a lane for my Razor to run down and push that button, and it just didn't work. But it was a really fun game.
And you got 6-6. I'm really just happy that in the first 3 days, like the first day when we did the first 2 episodes on O12 and Starvada, you were like not really looking at the Beast Hunters or the motorized bounty hunters, and they were just absolute heroes on day 1.
That's correct. And yeah, the motorized bounty hunters did it again. Like they first turn, they went up the side of the board, they killed some stuff. Again, they got armor again. they tanked some shots, and they got in and killed a bunch of stuff and did that. And then the one on the turn 2, actually, the motorized bounty hunter was a hero because she came around a building and then drove up into the middle of his link. It was just like, chain cults everywhere. Actually, no, he mostly dodged, so I shot machine gun shots. He ended up failing miserably, but I killed the HVT, which was the important part to get that extra point. Because he was just swarming. Like, it was like, how do you get this HVT? It was hiding behind the pillar, and it was just like making armor saves from other shots. It was really frustrating. He went down, but he got it back up with a med kit. And I was like, come on. And so then I was able to kill the med hit guy. Or no, I fully killed the HVT this time with the submachine gun because I used the shock ammo. But it was just kind of like, 9-point heroes, 3 of them that were amazing. And I just love
27 points, and they've definitely earned their points back multiple times over these first 3 days.
And the Beast Hunter in that list was 15-point because it was a started camo and got plus 8 inches, and just to throw off like the defense, because I had Ada laying mines, I had the Raven Eye laying mines, I think I had someone else laying mines as well. But anyways, there's a lot of camo markers around, and so it was just kind of like one of those things in the middle that's like, is it a heavy flamethrower or is it a mine? How close do you get?
Bad decisions, making bad decisions.
It turned out to surprise every single person. No one ever expected
is using the Beast Hunter. Right?
They're like, what the heck is that? What? it has a heavy flamethrower?
That's a heavy flamethrower and a Panzerfaust? Like, what is this?
Yeah, the look on his face when he's like, I'm gonna go push this button. I'm gonna shoot a Panzerfaust at you. He's like, what the?
There's not a lot of armies that have access to them, to be honest. Like, even some of the ones that have been redone recently don't get access to them. They get access. A lot of them get access to the diggers, or the trip hammer or whatever, but not necessarily the Beast Hunters. Beast Hunters are a fantastic unit, though. So day 1 ends, and you guys have yet to have a drink. So what'd you guys do that evening?
There was the bar. There was like a beercade. It was like a bar, and then there was a bunch of arcade games, and then we just bought a bunch of tokens and played silly games. And
Sick.
Owen proceeded to be better at me than every single game. And every time he went to go take a picture of him annihilating me, I like hit a reset button or something, or it timed out.
You unplugged the N64 before he could actually get his fatality. You were that kid. You'd pull the cartridge out before he could fatality you in Mortal Kombat. Dan, I'm so disappointed in you. Yeah, I'm so disappointed in you. You'd unplug it before Mario Party would actually like declare the winner. You're the worst kind of person.
I actually only pressed the button once. Every other time it just timed out, and he was just too slow. But
the worst kind of person, Dan. Awesome. So then day 2, you guys roll in. You got 2 more missions to do, and let's start with Owen. So it looks like you dropped into what army?
This one is up against Bakunin, which is also not an ideal matchup. So first off, we're done with that exclusion zone garbage, and I get to play the list I want to play the rest of the time, which is double Sunduck, but all the Panzerfausts. Playing against Bakunin, he has a bunch of MSV because he's got a 5-man team with Riot Girls and then a Harris with more Riot Girls. They all have MSV1, and so they're all a solution to things like McMurrow. They're a solution to things like
you had 8 Riot Girls? That's madness.
They're not all Riot Girls, but they all have 2 Riot Girls in them.
Got it. So he's using the whatchamacallit, the
so Riot Girl Spitfire,
Avacyn and Fiddler, who both count as Riot Girls.
No, they weren't pure links, but they were. One was a 5-man, which meant the extra burst with 2 missile launchers at MSV, and the other one was a Harris with a Spitfire, which also has MSV. And so there's no good path forward, kind of thing. Missions power pack, which makes you deploy in the corners, and I at this moment make the decision that I think is the reason I lost. Now, I mean, you never know, right? But I think, or I describe it as a loss. We tie at the end, but I lost because I didn't win. And so I win the roll and I choose to go first. And in Power Pack, and I didn't really comprehend this at the time, is that there is a 5-point swing by being able to simply touch your own objective at the end of the turn or at the end of the game and flip 2 buttons, regardless of whether your opponent has or hasn't flipped them already. And so at the very start, he had 2 camo markers that were going to be close enough to get to those buttons and a hidden model that I wasn't aware of near his own button. And so him going second meant that he was essentially guaranteed 5 points. And I didn't really click that was what I was facing, and that was how many points were on the table. So for me, I was like, I'm on his half of the board. I'm killing his dudes. I'm not able to hold it at the end of any of the turns, but I've got both my classifieds and he hasn't gotten anything. This is great. Like, things are going well. I'm now on his objective at the end of the game. And then at the very end, he goes, This model, camo marker walks out behind the box. Next order, it reveals itself. Oh, we're both touching, so it's contested, so I score 3 points. Camo marker walks towards the objective. I don't care how many of you shoot me and kill me because I do a whip check and I got it. And then another camo does the exact same thing and they both get obliterated, but it doesn't matter because he rolled his whip. And so he scores 5 to my 5 because neither of us control boxes. He got the 2 objective points for the boxes in the middle. I got my 2 objective points from classifieds. And so we tie. If I had gone second, I think it'd be much better for me.
Yeah, he had to make that play before your last turn. Yeah.
And he was getting like, he had 135 points alive and I had like 200 and something.
219, yeah. I mean, you're also playing an army that doesn't actually care about going first or second that much because you're playing like 8-card Monty, 12-card Monty, whatever, how many counter markers you have.
Just 9. Yeah. Yeah. And the fact that there's like, the fact that there's a saturation zone that only affects him because my Panzerfaust are already shooting 1. And so his missile launcher riot girls are only getting 1 shot, even though they're in links. But the Sundukbud still gets 3. So like, should I have gone second? Probably. Even if it meant that, like, the thing is that on Power Pack with 2 Fides and McMurrow, you can kill so much stuff if you go first. And the problem was on my first turn, I think I killed like a Morlock. That's it. I couldn't kill anyone. He just made his saves, or I didn't hit, or we just truced out and whatever, and I just couldn't seal the deal on anybody. And
it wasn't even really worth it that you went first.
No, definitely not. And realizing later how much of a power like that last minute swing is going to be, like, good on, like, he had a plan. He knew what he was doing. He was going to score 5 points, and there was pretty much nothing I could do about it. All that would matter is, can he make 2 relatively good whip checks, like whip 13 or something like that? And like, yeah, if he failed one, I win the game, but that's not a bad strategy. Like, if you want to, it doesn't matter the state of the game. I walk forward and push button, and if I get it, I win, or at least tie. It's pretty good. Pretty good.
I mean, yeah, he has a pocket solution for 5 OPs. Like, that's a big deal.
Yeah, and it is, and it won him, or at least tied it up. And so it made it that was a draw. And I'm like, well, good on you. You had a good strategy. He was number 1 at the time, and I was number 2 when we were going into that round. And basically, it just pushed both of us down 1 slot, and a new guy came into first place at that point. But it also opened it up that there were like 7 people capable of winning as we went into the final round.
Yeah, it was pretty close. I don't think at the end of it all, there was like everybody had, I think there's only one person, 5 rounds, 40 people. What is it? You go 40 to 20 to 10 to 5 to 3. There should have been 3 undefeated players, but I think there's only one at the end of it all.
Yeah, the pair downs
and ties and pair downs. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is the fact that I and my opponent tied in that round, because if one of us had won, then the pair down. It is what it is.
It shook it up. It shook it up and made it to the mission. Was nice and close when it was all said and done. So how about you, Dan? Yeah. Who'd you drop into?
I dropped into, what was it? I had it in my head. They have a tag also with a hypermagnetic cannon, and they have the, help me out, Owen. I was telling you about this game.
Is the Nomads. Cemento? Oh no, Nomads.
It was Nomads Vanilla.
Oh.
And so he had that cheap hacker, and then a bunch of dudes and some buildings.
Chaz and Billy, probably.
Yeah. And then a bunch of guys dropping fast pandas.
Intervengers.
And then, of course, they're all repeaters, and they had the missile bot, and then he had his tag with the hypermagnetic cannon. And I was like, hey,
Salamandra is what that one's called.
My move. But anyways, I was like, okay. He won the roll-off, and he chose to go second because of the aforementioned easy point to the end of the game. But it's Power Pack, so it's like, as much as I hate Power Pack, I also kind of enjoy the beautiful design of it, as in, if you go first, you're screwed. If you go second, you're screwed. Kind of intro to it, where if you don't have a list that's really good at defending, then you'll die. If you don't go first. But also, if Yeah. So, anyways, so he let me go first. He definitely grabbed a much better side of the table. It was kind of an open table, but it wasn't terrible. But that was fine. He mostly hid. He had a few guys popped out. I played my camo list. The Lynx came out and shot some people off the board from like far across the board, so that was really good. I made him retreat a little bit. My Beast Hunter, actually no, I got to rewind a little bit because when we started, he's like, "Well, I'm going to go second. I'm going to choose deployment, so I'm going to choose this side." And so I'm like, "Okay, well, I'll choose to go first." He's like, "Well, are you going to deploy first?" I'm like, "Well, that's your decision." And you actually should have said that before I said I was going first. And he's like, "Okay, but are you deploying first?" And I was like, "Well, that's your decision. When you choose deployment, you choose who deploys first." And it was like he was tired and clearly not awake yet, and it was kind of like this. I think it was like this. There was a conflict when there wasn't a conflict, kind of thing. It was like a perceived like conflict of like me shitting on him or something. I don't know. It was just a misunderstanding, and we just got off on the wrong foot. And I didn't really think anything of it, but then it kind of came up right away again. And so my Beast Hunter was advanced deployed, like +8, walked around. He had his TR bot and his turret right there. I did a super jump. I walked up with camo. I did a nice little super jump. I did a heavy flamethrower that hit them both. There was an argument whether the template could hit them both, but I was like, super jump gets you really high when you're size 2. And it's like only has to be like templates hit everything. And it was in my mind, it was like easy as pie, very, very clear, not going through the railing, anything, got hit both of them. He was disagreeing, and I was like, so I grabbed the judge. He said, "Oh yeah, he could definitely see both. Okay, we're cool." But then he was like almost like checked out at that point. Like he was just really not into the game, and it really kind of sucked because it just sucked all the fun out of it. But my heavy flamethrower burned both of them to death, so that was great because he had a bot nearby, and I had to decide that I want to hit the TR bot and the engineer bot, or do I want to hit the TR bot and the defensive turret? So I went for the defensive turret. I lucked out. The heavy flamethrower did that again. Then I activated my duo of, so the TR bot was down, blocking that line of fire. So then my motorized bounty hunters did what they do best, and they suicided up. This time they definitely died on the way in, but they were able to get rid of his missile bot and two other guys, I think. And so they suicided. They got their points back. The missile point was gone. Who cares about spotlights now? But then my hackers were still in range of his hackers and fast pandas. So I had to like activate like other people at the suicide to get rid of the fast pandas. But there was another disagreement when my guys came in because I was like, well, I'm going to shoot. And he made some dodge rolls. And I was like, I think you need to make one more armor save. Like I didn't count them all. And he was kind of like tilted. And so I was like, I felt bad, but I was like, I mean, this is important because this is why I'm suiciding my guys. And there was a big thing. We walked away from the table for 5 minutes and came back. And it was just like a whole hullabaloo. And then it was my list played well, his list played well. My alpha strike was just too much for him. He couldn't ever recover, and I ended up winning 8-1.
Did the judge ask you guys to take a walk for 5? Like take a lap?
He wanted to concede. He just wanted to completely concede and walk away from the game. And I was like, oh, like what do we do? Like how are points scored? And he's like, there's no rules for conceding in Infinity. So how about you guys take a walk and we'll try to finish this game. And so he kind of called it at the end, but it was kind of like the writing was on the wall at that point. And it just kind of sucked because every time there was like a conflict, a lot of it was just like ignorance. I'm like, is that how that goes? How is that? And it was more of like questions. But I think it was everything at that point was me just trying to be annoying and be like in his face about things. And it was just like, oh, yeah, can you deploy a perimeter weapon? I thought it had to be base to base. And it was just like, it was genuine questions, but it just felt like I was kind of like nagging him and annoying him.
Yeah, he reached a point where all of your interactions were adversarial, basically. That's hard.
Yeah, and it happens in Infinity all the time where you have to kind of negotiate a solution of like, oh, I moved up here, well, I can shoot you. Oh, I didn't know he was there. Can I move back? Sure, yeah. And like, there's always like a compromise, kind of like figuring out how to play the game. That's how you have to play Infinity. And just like every time there had to be a compromise, he just like, oh yeah, sure, whatever. Yeah, sure, whatever. Yeah, sure, whatever. But at the end of the game, it ended. He was kind of whatever, but he collected himself. He came back and he was like, you know what, your list, you played well. Your list did what it was very well. I underestimated the alpha strike. I was upset about it. I apologize for acting that way. And I was like, hey man, thanks for that. And that was a really, really good feeling after having a really bad feeling for most of that game. So that's like
that's
kudos,
really big of him. Yeah.
Kudos to him. And it was good. And it turns out I made some mistakes. I went to go total control his tag, and I rolled 2 dice instead of 1. Oops. And I got it. But in the end, I'm pretty sure I had 2 successes and he failed. And so it wouldn't have made a difference. But it was just like these little things where every little thing was just like irking him. And I was like, I don't know what to do anymore. I don't know. It's like the dice. So anyways, I ended up with a good win and lots of points. It wasn't the funnest game, but in the end, I think we're on good terms. At least I hope so. And he seemed like a genuinely good person outside of that interaction. We saw him at the bar or whatever. So if you're listening, I hold nothing against you.
I think that interaction afterwards probably speaks more to his character than anything else. So he came back and explained where he was at, and you guys are able to push past it. That's great.
For sure.
So you're 2 ties and 2 wins.
Yeah.
Around 5. Owen is a tie and 3 wins.
Now, because of my high scoring, when we looked at the ATS, I was actually in 4th place at this point, even though I had 2 ties.
You were, yeah.
Because I was majorly scoring, and Owen was in 3rd. And so we were convinced that we were going to have to play each other.
Have to play each other, yeah, going into the final round. There was a looming threat that you guys might have to play the final game against each other. And there was a lot of hullabaloo about it, but I guess they paired differently.
Yeah, it was like Owen went against 14th place, and I went against like 8th place or something. It was weird.
Owen actually played against your 3rd round game, and it was probably strength of
yes.
schedule is what ended up happening. I think is you ended up playing based on strength of schedule.
Okay.
Because you had 2 draws, you didn't end up playing because he didn't have any draws, and that means that you're into someone who had a draw, because the guy he played had a draw and 3 wins, and he had a draw and 3 wins.
There you go.
It's funny because a lot of the guys that I had played, except for the first one, they all ended up scoring pretty high afterwards, like more than me in the end. So it was I played against a lot of good players, is what I'm saying, and I really enjoyed the interactions. But last game, I did not fare so well.
Well, let's do you first, and we'll end on Owen. So,
Okay.
So what was your final game? You ended up playing into what?
I was playing Firefight, and I played into JSA. And so I was like, so this was the problem, is that I said the tiredness didn't really affect me that much, but I definitely was feeling tired. And then Owen was instantly playing mind games with me the instant that he thought that we were going to play each other. He's like, oh, good. That's an easy win. I'm just going to crush him. No problem. Just like nonstop. Just like nagging.
He just immediately started browbeating you when he thought you guys
can't help
to play.
it. You just can't help it. It's hilarious.
I was looking forward to that game. It was going to be great.
So easy for you.
And I know exactly what he has. He does know what I have, but it doesn't matter.
I'm gonna cut his arms and legs off and throw him in the lava.
If you win this game, you have a good chance. You have a chance at winning. But there's no way I'm going to let you have this for free. I'm gonna make you just fight for it. So then I'm like, okay, so I can't. So my Firefight list was my Zeta list, but I was like, no, I can't bring my Zeta list against Fidesz and McMurdo and all that kind of stuff. If I go second, I'm screwed.
Well, right? Who's he playing? What army is he playing?
He's talking about my army. He's worried about me.
Oh, he's worried about you're worried about Owen's army.
I'm setting up the reason why I chose this. So I'm thinking, okay, I need to go full, like, this is my list to kind of hopefully not counter his list, but give me a fighting chance. And so it's like, okay, I'm not going to play my originally intended list for this. I'm going to play my camo list. And then we go in and I'm playing JSA. And it's like, okay, I played against JSA. He came with a ninja and screwed me up. So I'm going to play my camo list anyways, because if I go second, I don't want to lose my alpha and all this stupid stuff because it's stupid, guys on the side of the board, whatever. And so I don't choose my Zeta list. And then I go up just a heavy armored walk across the board, 10 orders. Well, a bunch of extra ordered stuff, but shenanigans. But it's just like one big group, again, of eliteness that just starts on their side of the board and walks across and kills everything.
So you ended up playing, it's like a samurai pain train, and you took your like screw through my head list.
Yeah, and I was like, uh-oh, how do I kill things? So he starts off, he gets first turn, I didn't realize that he brought, what are the guys with total immunity, armor 4, 3 wounds?
Karakuris.
Katakuri. So he had a Harris of 2 Katakuri and engineer on one side, and then he had a core of some other guys on the other side. He held back the big Japanese monster dude and put them in the link.
Okay.
And so yeah. And so I was like, I had completely failed, and he didn't tell me, and he also forgot, and his buddy reminded him halfway through the game, and then we started playing with the rules that he had total immunity, because I was shooting him with a flashball spot before, and he just stopped fighting me after that. And so I was like, oh yeah, I got an EM mine, it's gonna be great against them. And it was like, oh yeah, they got total immunity. I was like, I put the EM mine on the wrong side of the board. Oh no. They do nothing. And then my so first turn, he walks up, he kills 1 flashball spot, I think, and he takes 2 wounds on his big samurai dude because I surprised him with the links, and he had to run back for cover, and I shot him a few times.
Oof.
And so things were great for me. I was like, okay, this is good. He's done basically no damage to me. And now I have my full army of whatever I can do, and I gotta go have some fun. And so it's like, okay, on this side of the board, the bounty hunters are going in, trying to do some damage. One got climbing plus, which was hilarious. And motorcycles can't climb, but climbing plus allows you to move instead of climbing. So you don't actually do the move skill or climb skill. And
that's right. So it becomes a short move. Short move skill.
Motorcycles can go woo, 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 woo. But I was in a corner of the board where I couldn't do anything. This was arguably maybe one of the worst tables of being open and not height and stuff. And so it was like, okay, whatever. Basically, I go in, I suicide, and I do nothing. He just makes all his armor saves, the chain colts, he just chain colts me back or nanopulses me back. And it's just, he's got armor 4, 3 wounds. I get 1 unconscious and the other one down to 1 wound. But it's just not enough. And all my guys die on that side of the board, just trying to damage them. So it's like, he hasn't lost any orders. And I just killed 5 of my orders trying to do anything. And I'm like, he lost 1 order, but he's got an engineer nearby. So I was like, crap. Okay, what do I do? So I go over to the other side of the board, and Ada Swanson's like, okay, I got this. Walk up to the corner, drop a viral mine with a little gap, and then I pop out, pop back. I got 3 shots versus his 2. I'm hitting on 15s. He's hitting on I got mimetism. I got cover. He doesn't have cover. He crits me. And Ada Swanson goes down, but he only takes 1 wound from the mine. So I'm like, crap. So I got a razor on the rooftop. I pop up. I shoot him. He dodges. He gets into cover. I have super jump over the building. My flame bot gets into the range. I do end up burning him to death, but he takes a missile hit. Then my raptor walks over to kill the missile guy. He gets crit against. He miraculously makes his saves. Only takes 1 damage. Goes again. He crits me again, and the raptor goes down. And now I'm like, okay, I've killed 2 guys, and I've lost all of my army. And so then I try again. I've come around, and then he crits 2 more times. And then basically I suicided my army into him. And because he had the 2 wounds on everybody and that extra armor, he had that little extra whatever. And I had a lynx in a perfect spot, right beside his guys, just waiting for them to come out of that building so I could hit all 5 of them with the plasma template. And because it's a link, there's no defense against it unless you dodge, and that's fine if he dodges because he's going to have to do it again. So anyways, I totally forgot he existed. I didn't even bring him on the board because his last turn, he came in, murdered everything else. I was able to get 1 objective, and then he killed every last model on the board at the end, except my lynx, but he never got on the board, so he counted as killed at the end. And I didn't realize until about 30 minutes after the game, I was like, oh, I never brought on that guy.
Just completely forgot about him. That's so funny.
He was in that sweet ambush position, but it was just kind of I don't know if it was, I guess it was tilt, but it was kind of it's just one of those games. And it was, if I brought the Zeta list, I had a hacking net, I had that hidden razor, I had lots of repeaters. It was just he was going to have a bad time. It was going to be a game. It wasn't going to be one-sided, but it was just kind of I had the tools to take him apart. Especially
Yeah, I don't know.
with
I
the
don't know what he
terrain.
would have fought the Zeta with. There's not a lot in JSA that can just straight up fight a Zeta.
He would have had to get in the melee with me.
Yeah.
But then I would have had so many mines protecting him first turn and even second turn. I
And you're
would
just
have kept
always
my
retreating.
distance.
Yeah, you're retreating
Yeah.
back into your net at the end of every excursion, basically.
Exactly. And so it was just kind of like one of those things where it's like, yeah, I probably should have grabbed a different list. And I think Owen's in my head was like, oh yeah, I got to play this list for this mission. But also previously playing JSA, he likes the forward camo stuff. And maybe he even should have had that in his list, but he didn't. And so it was just a straight up list. And I ended up losing 10-1. It was just like a
10-1, no VPs. Just
what,
ground yourself to paste.
And I was like, well, yeah, it was the most disheartening part of that game was he activates his turn, and I do damage to him, and he doesn't really do damage to me. So I'm like, cool. And then my turn goes, and then I kill myself. And then his turn goes, and he murders the rest of me, and I go, I don't know what to do anymore. And there was just nothing to do. I could have maybe got 1 or 2 more points if I just went purely for points, but I was still like thinking, maybe if my dice go perfect from now on, maybe then I can still maybe come back in this game, or maybe find the lieutenant and kill him or something. And then just nothing worked.
You're the down on his luck gambler who's just like his last $10 on like the longest odd horse.
Yeah, but it wasn't even that bad of dice. It was like, okay, my Lynx is gonna shoot that guy in the hallway. Oh, I just rolled 2 20s to hit you. Okay, cool. I was playing D&D right now. But
it had betrayed you. Yeah,
it was just kind of like what little hope I had was gone, and then and the game ended. And he's like, "Oh, I had a lot of fun playing you." I was like, "I don't feel that right now, but I'll recover." And it was fine. And it was a local Calgary guy who mostly plays house Finity. And so he doesn't get up to the shop too much. So hopefully I'll be able to connect with him and get some more games in.
Sweet. That's cool. You get to play JSA too. So you played against JSA, Morats, what was the one before that? Steel Phalanx,
Nomads, and Combined Army.
So no repeats. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, actually.
And mostly a lot of new factions you hadn't played against too.
Yeah, I found out a lot of new things that I didn't know existed. Sometimes I was lucky enough to kill them before they killed me. Other times not. But I had a lot of fun. I did much better than I was expecting to do. I was kind of riding the high from that first game. Man. Yeah. And again, if the dice, I mean, I don't want to blame things on the dice, but if I had picked a different list, or again, if in that other, like the other ties, like every game was winnable. And even with that dice, they were still winnable. If I just, made that different decision. Mainly, if I try to kill Pandora, focus on killing Pandora more. If I would have deployed my hidden guy in just a slightly different spot, and if I would have taken a different list. And so they were all human errors that didn't take away from the fun of playing, but definitely were like, oh, I could have won that game. Right? And even if it was horrific dice, I still could have won that game. And that's what I really liked about the outcome of the tournament. At the end, I was like, oh, like I can clearly see where I made a mistake and where I didn't deserve the win.
And where that path to victory was, you know what I mean? In hindsight, like there's different paths to victory. You had outs that you didn't necessarily take. And you ended up with a positive elo. Your elo is 1020.1 now, which is pretty sweet. You're up over 1,000. You are ranked 526 globally of Infinity players in the world and 496th in Canada.
How many people are on that out of it's 500 out of what?
The global Infinity community, I do not know. I don't know how many people are in it, but you are ranked 526.
I need to know that number.
I will.
Otherwise, it means nothing.
Well, if I will tell you what Owen's rank is at the end of this, and you'll feel something. So you ended up playing Owen in the final round. You played Dan's round 3 Morats. So you played someone that Dan paired, and probably because you both had one draw, this is what dropped you into each other. So what list did you take?
Double Sunduck, but as always, it was an interesting start because we went into it and both of us were pretty like. I'm like, he was in 14th going into this round. And so it was a very bizarre, like I was in 3rd paired down to 14. So like my brain was completely like, I'm going to play against Dan. And so we go into it and it was a fun little game. there's no real standouts. The biggest things is that his list was much more better designed to play in Firefight than mine. He had no specialists. He had a bunch of drop troops who had the different equipment to be able to do like plant decharges and things of that nature. He happened to draw all classifieds that would allow him to just step on necks or touch people kind of thing. And so what started off as I like, okay, I'm just gonna, like, I know that Karnak is your lieutenant. I'm just gonna punch him in the face and kill him, and then I'll just tear apart what's left. Like, yeah, you're Morats, but you lose a bunch of strategos, you start losing orders, and this will be the end of it.
And it's a scoring factor too, right? It's kill more, kill lieutenants, 3 classifieds.
Never killed him. He made, I think it was 11 consecutive armor saves against a Fide, then McMurrow, then a second Fide trying to kill him, as he's just like face tanking or winning dodges. And yeah, I never killed him throughout the course of the game, even at the very end where I'm like chasing him with SMGs, shooting him while he's engaged with like a Daylami who also failed to kill him with his shotgun, still couldn't seal the deal. It became very close at the end because I didn't realize that anyone can push the supply, like the panoplies, and so a Gaki pushed it at the very end.
Yeah, Gaki with a machine gun.
If it wasn't for the fact that I had like utter control of the board, because all of his drop troops just like melted in the face of Sunduk Butts and Panzerfaust firing every direction. He tried to use his drop troop that explodes to land on where he sussed out my lieutenant to be.
Drop suit Terriot.
And it's funny because we rolled it under basically like I rolled my dodge, failed my dodge, rolled my armor, made my armor. So my lieutenant didn't die. And then he actually had failed the land. And so it was like, oh, wow. Because where he was landing, like Panzerfaust and Sunduk Butts were coming from everywhere. Like he may have killed her on the way down, but he certainly wasn't going to survive it. But yeah, that was kind of the game. It was starting off like.
So what did you end up scoring? So did you end up scoring the kill or the lieutenant or the 3 classifieds?
Killed more and 3 classifieds.
Yeah, because you ended up 5-4 at the end of this.
He
had killed more for 3.
Yeah, and then he killed more. No, I had 3 classifieds. So killed more for 2, and then 3 classifieds for 3. He had killed more specialists because I had specialists and he did not.
Gotcha.
And then he was able to do 2 of his classifieds. He was trying to get secure HVT, but 2 Sunduk Butts standing basically back to back prevented that from being an option.
Said no.
Yeah. It was one of those things that like the game started off really strong and I was like, oh, everything's just working. And then it stopped. And then I couldn't do anything for the rest of the game. Every shot bounced. Like I had killed most of his stuff right off the get-go, and then like McMurrow sat there forever just fighting everyone around him and killing them, but I couldn't seal the deal. Like and that was what it was. And I felt
how did you feel about having to get that close to do all your engagements? Because you didn't really have a lot of range, like except for the reactive turn, because all of your Sunduk Butts was never neurocinetic. You didn't have a ton of active turn hitting pieces that could go up over 16. How did that, like, did it cost you? Did you have to spend more orders, you feel, to get close enough to do the engaging?
Not really. I'll be honest. One of the things, like, this is kind of a theme in Infinity tournaments. Generally, tournament terrain is much more open. And, like, the biggest takeaway I have about going to Colder Than Carbonite is shy of, I think, 2 tables. If I had played double mag key, I'd have been unable to put both in cover and out of line of fire on like 18 out of 20 tables on deployment, regardless of what the deployment was.
Is that true?
The 2 giant buildings tables that you remember, and then the table, I think it's 13, which is one of the ones I played on that also had giant buildings. And basically every other one had a spot for a tag, but not 2 spots for tags.
I guess that's true.
So there's always somewhere you could put one, but you'd not be able to do both. And I kind of knew that, and it was why I was really hesitant to bring it. Not to mention I got obsessed with Sunduk Butts, but Yeah,
That's the thing. Yeah.
that was the thing. And so like I'm glad that wasn't the route I went, because I would have felt bad to go double Magariba guard and then play my alt list the entire time, because it's like, oh, there's nowhere to deploy here. Like the forest table is such a good example of, if you bring a tag on that board, there is one spot on each side of the board that it could stand, which is designed intentionally. Like they're setting it up in such a way that there's a spot for a tag to always hide. But within 2 orders, if you have MSV, you can see the entire board. And so they changed the board after Dan played and stomped his opponent on one side, and then I played the same board and did the same thing to that's on the same side. And so they added more terrain that was like actual buildings and line of sight blockers, because I mean we blamed the fact that you could see everything, but the reality was it just needed more terrain. But yeah,
wow.
that's
Or
game.
more line of sight blocking terrain, more things that aren't just free smoke clouds, especially if they weren't playing them as saturation zones. And usually dense woods, I think in the rule book, are also saturation zones. There's zero vis and saturation.
There were jungly bits.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think saturation is gonna make or break.
It just means it's less. If someone's got a visor, they're just not getting free smoke clouds everywhere to just shoot through -6, right? Like it doesn't actively reward a guy with a visor and then make it so there's nowhere to hide, basically, with no sort of consequence for shooting through the trees.
That's fair, but yeah.
So you ended up playing 3 new players and 2 players you'd played previously because they're from Calgary.
Yep. Almost played Dan too.
Almost played Dan. That's right. So you came second overall. That gave you an ELO of 1062.98, and that's put you at 152nd globally. So you were in 152nd place worldwide and 146th in Canada. And sorry, that includes the United States for you in North America, because Canada and the United States are one territory for this.
Oh boy. Now I just need to go play a ton of events, farm those points.
Get those sweet points. So what about prizes? What was the prize situation like?
They had a lot of donations, a lot of different packs on the table. They had obviously an ITS pack that was for first place. They had a signed copy of I forget the name of it, but it's the Nomads versus Ariadna 2-player starter set. That went to the Wooden Spoon, which was great.
That's nice. New armies.
Yeah. That was the joke I made as he walked away. I was like, "Hey, look, now you might win." Because I actually asked, "Do you play Pana, or do you play Nomads, or do you play Ariadna?" He's like, "No," and I'm like, "Oh, well, you should." And then after that, it was just kind of, there was a couple different kinds of prizes for like sportsmanship and best painted and obviously tournament winner, and then it was just, here's the table of all kinds of packs of guys. There were like 2 Zetas. There's a bunch of the O12 stuff. There were Steel Phalanx and Shazvasti, and
there was a lot of O12 boxes.
I think it got like 20 something people down before the prizes ran out.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So top half all got like some cool models take home on top of their like customized like measuring gauge and stuff like that too. That's awesome.
I want to do a huge shout out to Matt, who ran the event. He was phenomenal. Right off the bat, it was just kind of like, hey, we're all here to have fun. The best case scenario of you winning is you get more models that you don't need. So it's not that serious. And just kind of set the tone for the, most importantly, be good to your opponent.
Yeah,
and then
definitely.
After the vote for the most kind of valuable player or like favorite opponent to play against, he's like, this is definitely the most sought after trophy, or should be. And then he gave away that award, kind of thing. And so it was a really well run event. It seemed like everything went really smoothly. And so kudos to Matt, and also Zenon, who's the local Calgary War Corps, who helped run the event and arbitrate all the rule disputes.
I don't know how it happens. You vote for yourself for best opponent and you still don't get any votes. It's crazy.
You should. I feel like there's a disqualification there somehow.
I did not vote for myself.
That's fair. So then you guys represented Calgary pretty hard. That seems like it was a good showing for you guys. Would you go back next year?
Maybe. I guess it all depends.
If you still like
but,
Infinity at that point.
Yeah. It depends on if my Jews list is working.
If your EM grade launcher is dominating everywhere.
Yeah. If I can roll hard nines constantly.
I think the thing that like a big event like that always makes me want to do is start a new army. I always want to it just always makes me feel like I want to do it again, but I want to do it with like a totally different team.
Fun thing, the winner actually, I think that was his first win of an event, and it was an O12 player, vanilla O12.
I was going to mention that was the number ones were O12, then Assassins, then Cosmoflot for the top 3 lists. Did you see his list?
That's so bad.
Did you see the list?
I actually did not see his list.
I don't know if it's posted. Let's look.
I saw his like model collection kind of thing, but like it was just kind of like, oh yeah, he's there. Like for some reason, I would like didn't think he was near the top at all, and then all of a sudden he won, and I was like, oh cool. And I wanted to ask him his list, and I got distracted, and there was too much going on.
I think it got posted in the Infinity global community. He is 59th globally and 69th he's 69 and 69. He's number 69 globally and in North America. Good for him. And those were his first 5 ITS games of the season. His ELO is 1090-96. He won all 5 of his games.
It's good to win
against nobody you guys run into.
What were the score differentials? Or what was he?
He went 5-1 round 1 with like almost no casualties. And then round 2, he was 8-3 with like roughly the same casualties. There's no blowouts. He went 5-3, 5-3, 3-8 in his final game. So he got major, minor. Oh no, he got a major again. Sorry, it's just reversed his scores.
Yeah, I was like, there was an 8 in there.
Yeah,
he won 3 points to 8. It was a weird game, but he deserved it.
No, it's because when you input stuff in OTM, whoever's on the left and right side, their scores go to the left and right side. It's not always the player that you're looking at the score for. It's stupid. But yeah, no, it was 8-3. He went 8-3 in the last one.
All I know is the day after we got back, I sat down and painted. So my prize off the prize table was just a Ziploc bag of models. And so I like got into it. And now I painted 20 something Steel Phalanx models yesterday afternoon or Monday afternoon.
Yay. So it's Steel Phalanx all day.
Yeah. At least on Saturday.
That's exciting. That means that our next little breakdown, you're gonna have some fun contributions for it. That'll be exciting.
Good luck keeping me on this faction for greater than 1 week.
I think they've got some. I think they've got some interesting stuff. I think there's some neat stuff with Steel Phalanx. I think
this is what'll determine.
They've gotten a glow up in a serious way.
If I beat Owen in enough games, he'll just go back to Assassins.
No, that'll get me to play them more.
If he can't win, if he can't win, but it's not because he doesn't think the path's there, but he can't see the path. That will make him obsessed with the faction.
But here's what happened though. Well, I mean, granted, he was taking me on a grand tour of all the nasty things that exist in the game, and so he was like, "I'll play this faction and bring this nasty thing, and I'll bring this faction. I'll introduce you to all the crazy stuff." And then he was not winning consistently again. He was like, "I'm just gonna play Hack a Slam. I love Hack a Slam," and then he won all the time. And he's like, "Yeah."
Hey, we were practicing for tournaments at that point. Yeah, I mean, I was like, here's all the different things that exist in Infinity.
My box that I won was the Cho box, the Cho expansion box, which
cool.
I vowed never to buy because it's like $50 Canadian, and the only useful model in there was Cho, which in a good game, Cho will never show herself. In a bad game, show herself for a total of 3 seconds until she dies.
Right.
And so you don't really need the model at all. But it was there. Nothing else was really of interest. There was some stuff that I would have grabbed, but it was 14th on the line. All the good stuff was gone, at least in my opinion, for what I wanted. And so I grabbed that box. But it worked out because I already had a Hippolyta from your wonderful donation to me.
Oh, there you go.
And so Owen nabbed the other Hippolyta in that box for his Steel Phalanx.
Nice. Sweet. So he's got a Hippolyta as well. So it looks like you can look at the classification if you want for Colder Than Carbonite by clicking on the OTM tab, but you can't see lists, unfortunately.
I don't think a lot of people submitted lists.
I don't don't see any lists at
He
all.
mostly just checked lists in person at the front desk. Like he didn't have any. He did not require or care if anyone actually submitted lists online, and I don't think anyone did.
That's a shame, because it is so useful for Corvus Belli to have the list submitted so they can see all the metadata. I definitely would encourage anybody going to an event to put their list in, regardless of if it's requested or not, just because it gives you such a like great insight into, and it gives the company great insight into what's being used, what's being played, and how like
Yeah, but then
how the
nerf
ITS is working.
Butt, so I cannot release what I've been playing.
I was telling Owen,
they wouldn't see it because I don't know. Never mind.
Exactly.
I don't think they see it. I don't think they actually see the lists that are submitted until after classification goes in.
Sure, but you won't see the fact that there's something in Assassins that's causing problems. They'll just think it's McMurrow, and then
I see
take him away.
You don't want to get canceled. You don't want Sunday Butt to get canceled too early on. You don't want him to get gazied where they have to break him apart like the Infinity Gauntlet.
The problem is we're talking about this on a podcast.
If it wasn't
all of our if it wasn't for the fact that it had
already happened to this faction, I'd be less conspiratorial.
That's true. Hackaslam's already had the
Thanos snap on one of their guys.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
like I actually can't think of an example of another faction that has had that sort of degree happen. Like you could kind of argue with Symbiomates, but Symbiomates were like, I don't know.
Toha got more killed by just their model line getting discontinued than anything else.
Yeah, deleting the models really killed them faster than their rules.
Yeah, but, if you can't find the miniatures, then the army's not a problem anymore. So don't worry about it. It'll be fine.
Because it's always a it's a rising tide for balance, but not for the Gazis. The Gazis got taken out back.
Nah, they didn't get taken out back. They just got shattered into a million pieces and spread across the infinite cosmos. Yeah, here we go. I think the lists got posted, Dan. Here, people are pulling lists. The Cosmofault list's up. I think. Oh, here we go. This is the O12, and they only use one list. Here, I'll pull it up right now, and we'll talk about the list real fast before we sign off. So the winning list, because it's of historical importance to Dan, of course. 2 groups: Alpha Lieutenant, +1 command token; Cho Chain of Command; Cyber Ghost, Hacking Device Plus; Oko, Kappa, Snowplow going by outside if we can hear that. Kappa Hacker Sword, of course.
Yeah.
Beta Trooper Doctor, Razor, Forward Observer, Blue Coat, Hippolyta, Varangian, and then Fuzzboat Evo, Fuzzbot Deactivator, Millicent, and a Lynx. That's a pretty mixed bag right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Just the button pushing, kind of classic. And apparently he played that all through. That was the 12 list.
If it was working.
For real.
It kind of solves all the problems. Like it's got something that can do.
Oh, wait, no, never mind. Actually, this wasn't the guy who won. This was somebody else.
There it is.
This is an 12 list that went 3 and 2. Okay, so that's why this one doesn't make it. I mean, it is a decent list. I'm going down further. Hang on.
Yeah, I was like, this doesn't sound like the winning list.
No, this isn't.
Maybe if you rolled well.
Trying to find it. Oh, is this it? Hang on.
As you're looking, talking about new factions, I think I want to lean more into Star Armada just to mix things up a bit. I'm just having itch to try something different now because I was like,
right.
Because I'm like, right now I feel like I have
I found it.
Two really good lists for O12, and so I was like, well, either I could just totally revamp everything, or I just go to all the models I already have and go to Star Armada.
Right.
You have the list.
I do have the list. Hang on 1 second. I'm pulling it up now.
He doesn't have the list.
No, I do. There was 2 O12 players like posting their stuff in the chat, and I just have to actually copy and paste because it's like I have to actually like select the text because there's people like replying with the text as well. Hang on. And pulling it out. Here it is. This was the list that was for every mission except for Firefight. And it looks like he had a Firefight specific list as well. This is Gordon King's list. Okay, so not super different. Alpha Lieutenant, Cyber Ghost, Hacking Device Plus, Lambda Doctor. Oh, with a Udbot. Use a Lambda, interesting. Akita, an Omega with an HMG, an Epsilon multi-sniper, a Monstrucker, with a Udbot, Sirius Forward Observer, with a Sirius Bot, Delta boarding shotgun, and a Fuzzbot Evo. And then he had a Peeler with an HMG, Keto with a Flash Pulse, a Varangian, and a Gangbuster Mine Layer. So again, a pretty good spread. Went to 14 orders, it looks like. He was 10 in Group 1, 4 in Group 2, including the Varangian. So again, pretty classic meat and potatoes list. And then his I'm gonna save this real fast so that I can pull it up later without having to go to Facebook and like find it all.
Another stat I feel like would be important is like, did they go first or not?
For sure. Yeah, I don't know.
That'd be really interesting to actually track. Because I mean, in my mission, every time I went first, I won really hard. Every time I went second, I either tied or lost.
Owen had the opposite. Owen had the opposite experience. Interestingly, so the Firefight list had Cuervo with a boarding shotgun, Alpha Lieutenant, Sirius the Sirius Bot, Cyber Ghost Hacker, Parvati, double Yud Bot, Epsilon, Omega HMG, Raven Eye, Peeler, Kita, and Varangian in the second group. So took the Omega both, Epsilon multi-snipe. Didn't really lean too far in anything. It's kind of a mixed bag.
I think he leaned into the Omega hard. I heard some people complaining about the Omega just wouldn't die.
Yeah, we kind of, I don't say we slept on it in our review of 012. I think we just we minimized its core value at min-6 because there are a lot of visors in the game. But I think if you're not ready for min-6 heavy infantry with an HMG, it gets a lot of work done.
Especially because the Epsilon will make people duck their heads a lot more.
Yeah, duck for sure. There's no fire teams in either of these lists though, but he's just playing vanilla 12, but doesn't look like there's any duos either. I was a bit surprised I didn't see the Varangian. It might have been duoed with something. No, because only one Varangian is with a Kita, so it can't actually duo. Oh, they only duo with bronzes in this anyway. But also the no double motorized bounty hunter, because like that's 18 points well spent. And that Varangian and Kita could have just been 2 bounty hunters.
Yeah, I walked over and I was like, why didn't you have 2 bounty hunters? And he's like, oh, well, this is just the one I had free from last season. Right. I was like, you got to get another one.
Yeah,
but he won. So,
legit.
He got another one. So, I mean, he won the whole tournament. So I clearly shouldn't be giving him advice.
Yeah, I mean, lots of year greatest hits in here too, but he leaned into some bigger point value models like Parvati, the Omega and the Epsilon, and still had some of the meat and potato stuff, like the Peeler, double flash bots, and the Raven Eye and stuff too. So cool lists.
I was definitely terrified all tournament long about the Alpha getting just horribly assassinated first turn. And I think I've just been playing against Owen exclusively too much, where he always has some jank in your deployment zone. And I was just expecting that from everybody. And it didn't really happen.
Right. Where someone's just going to go cut your head off and you thought it was going to, you were constantly afraid of the Warcaster assassination the whole time.
Now, granted, if I played any of the assassin players, that definitely would happen with Fides.
Oh, absolutely.
Everybody brought Fides.
Yeah. Everybody who played assassins brought Fides. And you played double assassins, so it would have happened at some point. You played them.
And it's like, and also it's kind of like the, I wonder if that 012 lists with the alphas, if they, when I got to assassins and went second, if they would have had a good game or not. You know what I mean? It's kind of like,
there's not a lot here except for the Raven Eye to defend it with in either of these lists.
And the Raven Eye, I can tell you from personal experience with Dan, does not stop.
No, he gets there. Yeah, he gets there for sure. Yeah.
Oh no, I'm isolated.
If he doesn't, McMurrow does, and McMurrow will make it. He's got a TR bot, but the TR bot can't see through smoke. So like,
I want to be clear. I'm not trying to take anything away from the winner or like anybody who played.
Well, a big part of a 5-game event is who you get paired with for sure. Like I'm not. I don't think you're trying to take anything away. You're just noticing. You're just commenting on the list because it's different, and the things you were worried about that you tried to build into your list don't seem to be worried about here.
Yeah, and it's just kind of like sometimes maybe just you overhead your bets, or you if you just ignore something and just get lucky and don't have to face against it, then you do really good.
I mean, that's a really good point, right? That fishbowl bias. If you've been playing and you've been playing against assassins for in 3 months, and you go into this event, you think everyone's going to be assassins, everyone's going to cut your head off, then you don't, you shave the points from things like an Omega to try and take all that point defense stuff instead.
Yeah, or it's like I'm not taking the alpha in 4 of my games, into which has, you know, the extra command point, the extra counterintelligence.
It's also amusing because like the assassination stuff isn't actually like my native playstyle. Like I'm the person who's like double Magariba guard, Joan Pain Train, all heavy infantry.
How big a hammer can I swing here?
Like how big of this? Like you want to fight? All right, I'm BS 21. Let's go.
That's right. Yeah, Owen's always about trying to find the mechanical power in anything, and it's funny because you did take a list that was mechanically diverse as opposed to powerful, where you had lots of backup options and individual responses, and you forced your opponent to burn orders coming to you.
Yep. That list is a nightmare. I would like if I played against myself, I don't know how I would untangle myself from it other than cautious movement and smoke. That's it. Yeah. You do that and you'll I think
Ariadne would have been an interesting pair against you. I would have liked to have seen what happens with bears. If you had to fight against Cosmoflight, it would have been an interesting game.
The Sundeck must just annihilate them. Like it's so like having played against Ariadne probably 5 or 7 times leading into this event because I was practicing with Amon and things like that. It's like with the dice, unless the dice completely betray me, and even then that wasn't enough, there's no defense. Like the dogs can't move forward safely. At best they get a smoke close to them, but they can't just run across the board. And then my McMurrow goes, but he has to deal with the 2 Fides, and the Fides are like, hey, what are they called? Moblot? No, Mormare, how good are you at getting stabbed? Like
yeah,
I think it's real hard. Or even Will Wallace, where you're just like double shot shotgun. Go ahead, kill me. I'm only here to make you not alive anymore.
Well, bring it to spring offensive, and I'll play with my Caledonian and see how it goes.
Okay, I wasn't gonna, but I will if that's how it's gonna be.
If you're,
I'll bring it.
If you're gonna bring a 10 model ALF list, you can fit some Sundeck butts in a carrot case too.
Whoa, I have a 15 model ALF list. I clearly shared it.
I know you did. Yeah, it's true. All 15 models starting at A.
So for spring offensive, it looks like Owen's 100% going. I just got a new job, so I got to sort out vacation time, and we'll
dial you in spirit.
I'll still be within 3 months probation by the time, so I might be able to figure out, but it's also likely that I won't be able to go, which is sad. But having a job is good because I'll be able to buy more models.
I was going to say, and then you can afford more flights back here because you'll have an actual job of selling and buying new cool things. Sweet. Well, I'm glad you guys had a great weekend. It was super fun just getting all the text messages and the recaps over the days we're doing. And great that Cold and Carbonite is back and that the satellite event went as well as it did. We'll be back with our next episode where we jump in with some I guess it's Hackislam Prime. We do our total faction recap for Hackislam, and then we're on another faction. So big thanks for listening. And we'll be back with another episode as we get back on track with our faction recaps. Night, guys.
Bye.